No, I'll send you a picture. It's hilarious. It's a
So you have
jug of sangria.
It's like the Ernest and Julio Gallo family's juggo wine that your grandfather used to use. Do you remember Grandpa Mick
yes to
when
make
he
the
would,
pasta sauce.
right, the paisano.
Yeah, it's basically like a jug of cooking wine, but it's sangria.
But yeah, your mom actually was convinced for a long time that that was great wine to cook with. And then one time she put my Cabernet Sauvignon in it. She was like, oh,
It's not a great wine to cook with. It's just cheap and there's a lot of it.
that's true.
Like they're not kidding when they say jug, like it's bigger than a milk gallon. Like the damn thing was massive.
Grab the sangria.
This thing's like 2.5 gallons.
Grampy Mick used to keep it on like the bottom cabinet or like on top of the cabinets, and so getting it down was always real fun.
Oh,
I'm
Yeah.
thinking Grampy Mick's liquor cabinet was well used.
really?
I don't know what gave you that impression.
I don't know.
My liquor cabinet's well used.
Not mine. It only has 2 things in it.
Yeah, it only has
Oh,
two
3.
things, but it's used.
That's better.
Actually, I had really good bourbon the other day.
Where?
Okay. What was it?
Chance gave it to me.
At work?
Yeah, and decultures to, I don't know.
I need to be a
The
private.
Colts is over there?
Yeah, it was the one with the horse on it.
Yeah. Brad had that a few years ago. I think somebody got it for him for Christmas.
Why doesn't anybody get me alcohol for Christmas?
Because you just turned 21.
Just turned 21.
I was 21 for this last Christmas. I'm about to be 22.
That's so
What did I get you for Christmas? You liked what I got you for Christmas.
I did like it, and I do like it. I eat it.
Maybe
What did I
next year, if I come into a lot of money, I'll get you the bourbon's advent calendar.
How are we gonna get into a lot of money?
Um,
This podcast is going to take off. This exact episode right here. They're going to
That's
sponsor.
the only reason I
Market
tag on
Place.
sometimes, is just so that if it makes it big, I get part of the ad revenue.
That's the only reason you're coming on this, not because you enjoy talking with us. No.
Right.
I was saying at dinner tonight,
What a
that
sellout.
like I come at this from both the folklore and the Christian worldview. Chris seems to come at this from kind of the folklore and mythology worldview. Megan definitely has the mythology worldview, and Alex has a scientific record to stop us all and be like, nah, this is actually what it is.
I
We
know.
all
Like,
have
all
our
the nights I
designated
hated Alex
I
on
used
the
to be in
podcast. He wasn't here.
I know. Al, we did this whole sci-fi time traveling episode and you weren't here. And let me say,
It was
I'm
like
glad I
30 times I was like,
wasn't.
"It's Alex."
I hate talking about time travel because it hurts my head. Because if you think about it too much, especially if you think about it from like a logical or like mathematical standpoint, you'll get a fucking headache.
Oop, there we go.
That's
the first
why I don't
beep of
do
the
that.
night.
First beep.
Bleep.
Oh. Am I not supposed to curse?
No, it just depends on where we put it in the YouTubes.
Okay. So
All right.
what's the topic?
So tonight's topic. Let's
Demigods.
Demigods.
dive in.
We're diving in. Just
I made the boards. Hi. You coming up? I have a cat.
cat?
Kitty cat?
Cat, yes? A surprise appearance?
So friendly.
Oh, that's a
Surprise
floofy
appearance.
cat.
Hello, Blue.
Ooh.
Honey's friend's cat.
Oh. Quack.
You know, maybe she just has a lot to say on the topic of demigods.
Listen,
Maybe she's
That's
a
because
demigod.
cats are
okay, so
demigods.
she is named. This goes to our podcast.
Yes,
She
we talked
is
about this yesterday, actually.
Sophrena after a god. It's a little tiny piece of cat. So she thinks she's a god.
Well,
All cats think they're gods.
Yes.
Dogs.
It's very fitting. It's very fitting.
No, dogs. Well, it's just my dog. Bella thinks that we're gods.
Well, Megan and I figured out that Bella is actually, like when you talk about attitudes, she's a 17-year-old Korean girl.
it fits so well. It's alarming how well
Oh my
it
God,
fits.
Dad, I need to do my teeth, my nails. Oh my God.
Okay.
Or
Yeah,
a basic
and-
white girl. She could,
Yeah.
she could do a pumpkin spice latte.
Love pumpkin spice lattes, bro. I hate that stereotype because I love those things.
So does
Um,
Brad. Brad has started to call himself the Starbucks slut. Please send out.
Clear bleep.
But yes.
I really hope that you and Brad move down here, Megan, because it would be fantastic to just go on little Starbucks dates with Brad.
The bromance is real.
Not me. I'm his sister. No, I don't get to go on
I
coffee.
had enough coffee and meals with you to last a lifetime, Megan.
Oh,
Oh, move here with us. I'll do all the coffee dates with you.
Thank you.
Makes you
Yeah,
feel
now I'll
better,
move to
Megan.
Atlanta.
I was trying to come to see if I could come and visit like right before our birthdays, but because our car insurance got increased, well, my car insurance got increased like $300, I can't afford to. So I was gonna try to surprise you.
so demigod.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Demigods.
this isn't just us chatting. I
That's
forgot.
what a podcast is.
Um,
All right,
all
who's
right,
got
we're
the jam board
starting
open?
with this.
Chris made a jam board. I looked at the jam board. I didn't add to the jam board. We were dealing with
Oh God, I didn't finish it.
Well, it's fine. We were dealing with a rude text that needed our addressing.
Yes, I heard.
Mm,
So
yeah, text again.
when we talk about demigods, are you talking about? I mean, you in the gem board, I saw you had like the Greek ones, you had the Norse, somebody else that fails to
Egyptian.
Egyptian. But we're really talking about the idea of extra beings mating with humans. Like gods, you're talking, if you're talking about Genesis, you're talking about, and there be God or giants living in the lands at those times, and they mated with humans, which most cultures seem to have some sort of concept behind that.
Yeah, no, most cultures seem to have some idea of, extra beings mating with humans, like you just said. It's the way it kind of presents. It's a little differently because, of course, in the Norse mythologies, their gods aren't what you guys would consider like God. Like they're not immortal, they're not all knowing, like they're not all powerful. They have very real flaws. So the Norse demigods are a little different than like I've read accounts where like Thor counts as a demigod and not a god in his own right. Like
He does count as a demigod, yeah.
because his mother's a giantess, not another goddess.
Yeah,
But there's some debate
I
as to
didn't count him as one of the demigods for sure. I mean, so I guess you could debate that for sure, but because
yeah.
I mean, then if you do that, then Athena wouldn't be a god either.
Well, no, because she would because her mother was a Titan.
Yeah.
Who
Wait,
is
I thought Athena's only parent technically was Zeus, and she was
yeah, she well kind of. She was sprung from Zeus's mom because he ate or Zeus's head because he ate her mom.
Yeah.
oh
Yeah. So technically she would still count as a god in her own right. And there's a lot of demigods that end up becoming gods, but then in Egypt you've got the issue where you've got demigods and then you've got the like the ones who end up like not possessed. Possessed is the wrong words, but the ones who could channel the gods. Like the pharaohs were supposedly both god and man, but they weren't demigods.
I thought that there were some that were considered descended from gods, and there were others that just claimed that they channeled gods.
Right, but not it wasn't exclusive to it. Like to be pharaoh, you didn't have to be a demigod, but you had to be able to channel the gods. Because the pharaoh was the representation of the gods on earth, which made them not a god for the time that they were there. Like they thought all the pharaohs were Horus, you know?
Okay, well, we do not have the greatest jam.
I'm just looking at the jam board for inspiration. I'm like as a guide, I wasn't going to show it.
Okay, good. Because I was about to say.
It's like a Google thingy where you can share different thoughts back and forth. Like,
Yeah. It's kind of like a PowerPoint, but like
easier to use.
yeah.
Yeah. So I have to confess, I'm a little confused between the idea because the idea of like a demigod to me is, Zeus with a mortal woman giving you, Hercules or Perseus or one of the heroes of Greek mythology.
Well, that's a demigod from a human egotistical standpoint, because we would assume that demigods would only be half god, half human. But I mean, say
Well-
Zeus had a child with a
wood nymph, and
with
it
a
becomes
goose or something like that. Like,
Well,
which was
he
a-
definitely turned some poor woman into a goose after he.
Yeah, but like just just for whatever. But then that would be it. The offspring would also be a demigod, just not a human demigod. It would be some.
Right.
It would be like the
So-
Thunderbirds.
Well,
Right.
and I know last week we were arguing whether or not Nephalem would count as demigods. But I think we had firmly established that Nephalem were the offshoot of angels and humans, which would not make them demigods, because the demigods are offshoot of a god and something.
Well, so angels are supposed to be beings of pure spirit.
Mhm.
Which goes to the biblical imagery of an angel is they're frightening.
But like a
Bunch of
wood nymph is a being of spirit, and if a wood nymph and a human have a kid, they're not a demigod. There's something
Correct.
different, but they're not a
Although, aren't
demigod.
some wood nymphs so powerful that they are gods or goddesses?
Only Pan, but Pan was
Pan was
elevated.
Skater.
Pan
But
was
he
a
was,
saint.
no, Pan was the god of the woods. He was elevated. I mean,
But
that's sort
he
of like a
wasn't a
knight.
wood nymph. He wasn't, the olive tree over there. Like, I mean, there's no olive.
Also true. But
Like-
because one of the things that I have issue with in all of this is when you start going down the road of the Nephilim are actually, angels on earth or parts of the fallen angels, or even because there's definitely there's definitely theology and philosophy that fits with the idea that Nephilim are actually angels that walked the earth who assumed a physical body, and then they mated with humans, and then they created, the race of giants that are also called the Nephilim, who then also laid with women and had babies, and and then you ended up with like Goliaths.
Mhm.
And a lot of cultures have some sort of variation of that. As well, and by a lot of cultures, I mean like most of them. So there's obviously there's a kernel of truth in all of this, that everybody's kind of chasing around this never-ending circle. And I guess the question ultimately becomes, which are which, and where did they go? Did they go? Are they still around? All of the above kind of comes to mind, because you're like, they if they're immortal beings having kids with humans, then they have to be somewhere. You know what I mean?
It begs the question of, though, if those specific beings were truly immortal, or if they weren't, especially if they had children with kids and then that offspring, like, would that be immortal, or would it just be very vital and able to live a long time but eventually die off?
Well, I mean, like I mentioned at the beginning, the Norse gods weren't immortal in the first place. They were long-lived.
Yeah,
They-
just like that.
but they were never immortal. So it would stand to reason that with each generation that their blood gets diluted further.
Then they
They
eventually
would-
just become people.
Right.
basically.
Well, I mean, I don't think they would be people basically. Like, a drop of like godly blood is probably stronger than mortal blood, but like I don't think they would live an exceptionally long lifespan. They might be resistant to getting sick, and we
Yeah,
might just
exactly.
chalk that up to like a good immune system now.
Mhm.
But like I don't think they would be, pushing 500 over there.
Yeah.
Well, that comes to the idea of, again, going back to Genesis, where God limits humankind to living 120 years at maximum.
But does
Because,
that include humankind that has godly blood?
well, that's the question is, I mean, if that comes from, if it comes from ancient humans trying to understand why are these people living so friggin' long,
So this man's been here since my
because
grandfather.
there's also the thing of the Sumerian kings,
Yeah, the Sumerian kings lived fucking forever. So did some of the Egyptian pharaohs. The first Egyptian pharaohs lived like 2,000 years or some shit. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me.
Like 19.
Well, the Sumerian kings is a
Well,
list
King
of
Tut was an
27
inbred
kings who
mess.
lived, who ruled over the Sumeria for 241,000 years.
Yeah, hold on, let me look this up.
Yeah, the
Ancient
Sumerian king list, or also called the Chronicle of the One Monarchy, is an ancient literary composition written in Sumerian that was likely created and redacted to legitimize the claims of power of various city-states during Mesopotamia during the late 3rd and early 2nd millennium BC. They list these kings as having lived anywhere from, depending on each one, 27,000 to 43,100 years reigning.
Civilized humans haven't been around that long.
There's that part too, that which definitely has an issue.
Like, there's no
Because
fossil records, no history, no.
well, there's so much wrong with the fossil record that I mean that in it of itself is an entire episode.
Okay, well, you would think that if there was civilized humans enough humans to form a civilization around that long ago, we would have at least one schmackerel of something, considering that we have records of species that were alive millions of years ago. So
True.
that sounds like just a myth or a story to me, but I don't know much about Sumeria or whatever, the Sumerian kings. I don't know much about that. I don't know
They
much
have
about
writings of them.
Christianity.
Yeah.
They have first account
Writing.
writings of them. Like the Sumerian language came from somewhere.
Yes, but was it around for 200,000 years? Or was that fiction?
Well, there's
I mean, that goes back to our time episode where we discussed how the measurement of time is wildly confusing.
yeah, anyways.
Yeah, maybe they considered years a different metric. I'm just saying.
Chris
goes-
doesn't have her hand up, but she wants to say something.
So yes.
This goes right back to my Antarctica thing that I
Yes.
didn't want to talk about. But they have started discovering that there's a lot of writings and stuff under the ice in Antarctica. And there's pyramids and a lot of other stuff down there too that they haven't quite released a lot of information about. But they are starting to realize that, obviously in Pangaea, there were people that lived where Antarctica was during Pangaea. And when the poles shifted, everything kind of got frozen over. So there's like civilizations that are down there and just completely covered in ice that there's a lot of holds on.
There we go.
Digging up and a lot of issues there. So we have a lot more to discover, a lot more that our government has discovered that they're just not sharing with us yet. So there is a lot more to our history that we just don't know about yet.
Well,
And archaeologists are finding more and more things every day too. Or not every day, but
no, you're pretty accurate. I mean, this goes to my Bible discussion of, I don't know, 4 episodes ago when we were talking about things like people trying to use archaeology to be dispositive of the Bible as an archaeological record, and because the Canaanites didn't exist, and then all of a sudden they're like, fact check, we just
Wait a
found
minute.
Yeah.
this didn't happen, this, and the truth is, I mean, this goes to the concept of even that map, help me out, the Portuguese map, 1500s, mid 1500s, you know what I'm talking about, that showed Antarctica without the ice shelves.
I literally was just looking at that not too long ago, actually. Let me see if I can.
you told me
Because-
the not that long ago. Both of you did, and I don't remember.
I
Well,
literally
I mean,
really showed Megan like just the other day.
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things.
I gotta send you something. Al, I'm texting you a picture. You gotta look at it. I meant to do it the other day. I forgot.
Is it of your tattoo?
No. It was of a drawing on the ceiling of the tattoo shop.
Is it the Piri Reese map?
That's it.
That's it. Let me I can share.
Also, there's one called the Bauche map. which comes from the 18th century.
So
Oh, I was like, what's happening? Our internet's been a little dodgy here and there.
yeah.
Oh, I like
The
the
wild
gold one.
that looks like something you drew like years ago. But the reality is, yeah, they found all these maps that showed Antarctica without an ice shelf. And the of course the naysayers say, oh, it's just fantastical drawings, or it was no, it clearly came from somewhere. Somewhere saw
very-
something.
It's very, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Again,
Go
'cause I
ahead.
was just watching like a major documentary about this. It shows Antarctica, like main parts of like the continent inland, and like the mountain ranges and stuff inland, and all of it's without the ice shelves. And it's in a
Right.
different spot, and it's pretty interesting how, as I say, and it's not like you said, it's not just the only map.
Right. And so then you have the Boucher map, which shows, and again, it's labeled controversial, but it is also in the Smithsonian.
Mhm.
You know, like it's one of those things that you sit there and you go like, okay, well, clearly they know something. And again, when you talk about things like this, it's Buache,
I'm looking at the first one, the Perry, what?
Perry Reese,
Very,
Pireis.
yeah.
And they are, in fact, you're correct. And again, I mean, I think just recently, and by recently, I mean in the last week, maybe 2 weeks, they uncovered an ancient stepway. And I don't mean like the things that look like a road in the Bahamas underwater, but underwater off, I think it's between Africa and the Orient.
Okay.
Somebody would have to look that up and fact check me. But they found something that looks a lot like the steps of a pyramid, an underwater pyramid that would predate any of the known pyramids that we have. And again, you know, when you talk about things like that, it does call into question, how old is mankind?
Mm.
How long has there been civilizations that, I mean, again, when you talk about even just the things like the pyramids, and you want to get into that conversation, people had intelligences that we cannot duplicate today. You know, everybody wants to say, oh, it was a bunch of slaves and they had these pulleys and they did, yeah, okay, how'd they get the Dolomite 300 miles down the river? Like let's deal with that fact first and then deal with the other thing. Yes, Megan.
Thanks. I was gonna say,
I'm sure she raised to him.
The physicists have many times shown how they built the pyramids with regular tools, but
That's not true, but because they can't replicate it. That's the issue. Sorry, go on, Megan.
okay, I was going to say that kind of ties into, you know, even when I was in school, like grade school, and then we were learning about ancient history, and they kind of presented these cultures, like the Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, as like being knowledgeable, but still slightly like bumbling morons a little bit. Like, you know, like they sit there and they're, well, yeah, and they're kind of like, oh, well, you know, their technology could never compete with ours. Like they didn't have nearly as the same knowledges that we did and everything. But then now they're finding archaeological evidence of ancient Egyptians in South America long before they thought anybody could possibly sail there. Like, you know, every year I feel like they come out with some new archaeological thing where they're like, oh, they did have this technology, or they could do that, and we didn't think they were capable of this. So it's like every year they're learning that they were more and more advanced. They would have had to start somewhere.
Mhm.
So the more advanced they are, the more likely I feel like humankind dates further back than we think they did. Mostly because also,
6,500 years. Oh, sorry.
well, I was gonna say also because, you know, if we're going back to like the basics here, like they would have started with wood before moving to stone. Wood disintegrates.
Yeah. Well, and they're constantly like, aren't they just constantly coming out going, oh, this Sphinx
Honestly,
older than we think,
500 years ago.
older than we think. And
yes, but that was not pre-humans, but this human.
Yeah, I
I
guess
guess it could be argued if a different race, not whatever our species name is that I forget.
Sapien.
Homo sapiens sapien. If there was another version, almost like a close or even past our intelligence that evolved from the Neanderthals and then died out, gave themselves a nice little extinction event like we're headed towards, and then wiped everything out except for the most basic and hardy of those humans, and that was the Neanderthals, and then we eventually evolved back up to this. That could be argued, I could say, but I don't know. I don't think that Homo sapiens sapien was existing much longer than however long our records show. I forget exactly how long it is.
Yeah,
Well,
but those records keep expanding too.
yeah, I was gonna say those.
I said much longer.
I mean, one of the things
No,
that,
but
that
they
I
I'm
expanded
talking
over.
like a margin of 30,000-40,000 years, like thinking that a Sumerian king lived for 240,000 years, like that.
no, that was 27 kings, over 200,000 years.
Okay.
I mean,
200,000 years of a civilization, just no proof, no nothing.
I'm not saying that I think Sumeria existed 200,000 years prior to us thinking it did or anything. I'm saying it's plausible that it could be, 75,000.
Yeah.
Chris, what were you saying before they got all sidetracked before they shared with the class? If you remember.
Was it about Egypt?
I don't know. We're talking about how
I say like,
no, I had said that if like it could be hard to find records of like developed civilizations because it would stand to reason they would start off with like more flimsy tools like wood rather than stone.
well,
Just
and I think
weird.
too, like another thing that we're having issues with, and another thing that we're crossing boundaries with right now is the fact being that obviously we've got water drying up in Egypt, so we're like unveiling new stuff that we never experienced before. So all of a sudden we're archaeologically at this like golden age of finding brand new things. And we're uncovering a lot of our pyramids and a lot of our stuff in Egypt were a lot more massive than we thought, and they go a lot deeper up underneath the sand, and they're significantly older than we expected them to be. So they're constantly redating basically the age of our pyramids, and there are a lot of pyramids that are also underground, which are quite fascinating to think about, that there's a lot more that we don't even see.
That would make sense that a lot of architecture, especially in Egypt and deserty places, got buried. Think about like the last grand tour that we watched,
oh yeah,
where like that town is slowly being devoured by sand. Like every year it like creeps into the town by 3
the
meters
Sahara
or
Desert,
something
right?
like that. Yeah. So like
Yeah.
it would stand to reason, especially considering how long Egypt lasted. That's according to the current record.
Right. And at
Right.
one point when Egypt first started, it was lush. It just slowly started turning in the desert, and now it's getting worse and worse and worse as time goes on. But like it was lush land at one point. They had major issues with flooding, and you can see it in the stonework. So now we just have this issue where like, okay, this is older than we thought. This history is older than we thought. Let's reassess this. Let's reassess that.
When I was sick, I took an archaeology I took an archaeology class my senior year of college, just kind of for funsies. And my professor it was really funny because he sat there and he'd be like, oh, archaeology is not like Indiana Jones, ha 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 ha. And then he would turn around and be like, well, yeah, we also discovered there was a major issue in how we were dating things. And turns out we were real wrong about a lot of it. And a lot of stuff is like super old, and some stuff isn't as old as we thought it was, and like all this stuff. And it's like, I don't know. I know there were no like temples of doom over there, but it sounded a little Indiana Jonesy to me. Like,
well, one of the things I did learn is that radiocarbon dating, while they say it is one of the more accurate ways of dating ancient structures and ancient,
it only goes back 50,000 years.
Well, it's not even just that. It is that literally it's based on not necessarily the fossil itself or the structure itself, but
No, it's around
also what's around it, right? And that can always be dodgy at best, So when you pull in the idea of like the Nephalem, remember that's where we started.
Right.
Right.
That's how this whole thing started.
Right. So if we're pulling in the idea of the Nephilim, are we maybe talking about a whole different race of humanity? One that was longer lived, larger bodied, more advanced than current Homo sapiens.
I mean,
I-
there's caves that have popped up on Google Maps that 20-30 feet tall with steps that literally looks like it's fit for a giant, and then mysteriously get disappeared off Google Maps pretty quickly once they get figured out.
What about Josh Gates?
Yeah.
Josh Gates walking through the jungles of Vietnam looking for a Bigfoot-like creature and stumbles on the tallest cave that nobody knew about. And when they talked to the local tribesmen, they basically said, nobody asked. Like we've known it was there for generations, potentially thousands of years, because I mean, it's not like they really moved down the road or something, And then they're like, yeah, it's always been there. And they go in there and there's basically, a treasure trove of different, artifacts from earlier tribes, of bones of people and of animals that are yet to be necessarily identified.
Right.
Like the dragon.
Well, oh yeah, no, there was a bones found of a dragon. I think I sent it to both of you. It was like a Chinese-esque dragon, but it was researchers in Scotland who were studying this. I didn't get a chance to read the whole article, but like I did look it up afterwards, and it wasn't on some like spoof site. It was on like an actual news site.
Funny
Which
thing
was-
about dragons is that we're so much closer to like having provable evidence that dragons existed at one point than people think. I mean, because consider this, we had the fucking Titanoboa. That was a like 30-foot long snake that existed.
No, they just discovered the newest largest snake
I
in the
know,
world.
I've heard about that one, but I'm just talking about the Titanoboa right now. Like, if that existed, then is it really so good
So
to think
scared of
one
snakes, Megan.
arms
You
and a
like
horns?
know too much about snakes.
They keep popping up. I'm telling you, it's a conspiracy. The damn things. I was innocently scrolling through Facebook and it's like
Listen,
bam.
You know what you were doing? You were making fun of my snake to Brad, and Google was like,
Mhm.
And it was,
That's
where it was
that's
found?
exactly what I'm talking about. Though. Like, basically, like that's big. That might as well be a Titanoboa with arms.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, I think what humans think they know of the world, and
They built a dinosaur wrong. Remember? Like it
yeah,
was
the
like
iguanodon. There's a couple of them.
yeah.
They go
Like-
wrong. The iguanodon was the major popular one.
I heard a podcaster say the other day that nothing is going to be discovered on Earth because all of the Earth has been, Google mapped, and it's been satellited, and it's been this and it's been that. And literally that same day was the day that this whole Chinese dragon fossil came out.
I mean, first of all, it's just patently untrue.
No
The
kidding.
Earth is as old as we think it is. Like, even if there wasn't humanoid civilizations, the oceans are deep. There could have been miraculously some fucking fish form of people that like fish civilization that evolved and did this whole thing. It could still exist because of how deep the oceans are. We still haven't even just like explored
Aren't
nearly
there
all of
cave
them.
systems in the ocean too that we
Yes.
cannot
So
get?
there's a lot of stuff that, especially in the ocean, I'm a firm believer of like that there is a ton of stuff that like we have mythologies of and everything that could be proven by looking deep in the oceans.
Maybe that's what the
Deep
demigods.
as shit.
Well, I mean, we just
And there's the caves and there's volcanoes, and then we haven't even begun to excavate the ocean. Like, how much stuff would we have never found if we didn't dig on Earth, like on the topsoil? Like, what about deep, like under the ground in the oceans?
Do you know that when I was a child, they thought that the top of Earth, like the Earth, was only like 2 miles deep, and then you started hitting magma and everything else.
That's what
And-
they kind of taught us too. when
Yeah,
I was in
And now, like, it's at bare minimum 12 miles.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, and you're telling me there can't be a civilization or like a hidden civilization that was ancient about 8 miles under there?
Could be.
So again,
Or Atlantis.
I think that brings it back to the idea of the Nephilim. I mean, like,
We're not talking about Nephilim. We're talking about demigods.
sorry,
He's obsessed
demigod.
with the Nephilims.
Well, because I use the
know.
term in indistinguishably.
But they're not the same thing.
The issue is when you deal with these sorts of things, obviously, if it's human enough to mate, then it's going to carry on the genes.
Well, and it stands to reason too. Like just going back a little bit, if it's human enough to mate over there, it probably has a similar bone structure. You know, like remember those news reports a couple years ago that they found the 7 foot tall skeleton with a gold eye socket, but it only had one eye socket, and it was dressed like it was in like a priestess's tomb. It was from like Greece, I think. They wanted to take the gold eye out of the socket, and everybody was like, "Put the eye back." It was like right after COVID.
This
hit.
never ends well.
Yeah, yeah. It was like right after COVID hit. You know, it was to say that she wasn't some demigod who was 7 feet tall. I mean, we have people now who are 7'4". Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being that tall. Like,
Well, the issue is that most of them are not proportional, though.
yes. Well, but this woman's bone structure was, and it's like, who's to say that she wasn't a slightly different, race? Like the genetic material wouldn't be there at this point. Her skeleton's 3,000 years old. Like,
So I feel like we needed to have Giorgio Tsoukalos weigh in on this. Correct. Because I mean, we are skirting around that concept of you're talking about multiple races of man, not all of whom are fully human.
well, but that would be the concept of a demigod too.
Correct.
So it doesn't have to be aliens over here. It could just be demigods.
Yeah, but I want it to be aliens.
Well,
What about aliens?
I want
Okay,
demigods.
that's what it is.
I said that we really needed to have Giorgio Tsoukalos be able to weigh in on this.
Why?
Because it would be a lot of fun and the debates
would
would get
just-
even worse.
It would just end up being like, and you're an alien.
Well, we know
You're
that.
an alien. You're definitely an alien. This might
Alright.
be correct real.
Ecoterrestrial. That's right. What if we're talking about real ecoterrestrials? What was that word? Ecoter.
I love how they found any reason. Like, they would like take a completely nonsensical point, like, and plants breathe carbon dioxide. So maybe they were extraterrestrials. Maybe that is what makes them aliens, obviously.
What if they spelled it that way on the teleprompter?
Ecoterrestrial?
They say it's so wrong that after you say it a couple times, it's hard to say extraterrestrial the correct way.
So, where does this leave us?
This original.
Yeah,
Go on.
basically that Megan wants everybody to be demigods and everybody else wants them to be aliens.
I wanted to be a demigod so bad when I was a kid. I was really hoping you were my
Who's to say they're not the same?
Sorry, son, you look way too much like.
I wanted to be Hades' son.
He says you're not.
The fact that I can't summon gold.
That would be Pluto's son, actually. Go on.
Actually, if he could, I'd be really pissed if he was holding that bag.
I know. I'd be like, where the hell was it?
Hey, Dad, you know that boat you always wanted?
You get a boat, and you get a boat, and you get a boat.
I mean, I don't think I would have only been moving out at the age of 21 if I could summon gold with the.
But no, I mean, I think that the idea of a demigod is simply the mixture of the not quite humans with the Homo sapiens. That's my thought.
Okay. I just don't like this whole debate started because you were saying that Nephalem and demigods are the same thing, and I am
Correct.
a strong proponent against that.
I mean,
I
I would say
understand that.
so as well, because, like, aren't they, like you said, they're supposed to be descended from angels, right? Not God himself.
Thank you.
So wouldn't it be against your own religion to say that they're demigods? Because, like, the commandments in your religion say that God is the only God.
Well, the funny.
So it would be
wait,
against your
wait,
religion to call
wait.
them demigods.
Wait, the Bible itself actually talks about the concept of other gods and what they identify as other gods. I mean, the beings that are angels have stupendous power.
I mean, yes, but they're not gods.
Right.
No, they're gods with a small g, not a big G.
No, see, that's just semantics.
Correct.
That's
I'm not going to argue that at
That's
all.
a grammatical thing. That is not like, if you
No,
call
I'm
it a
not arguing.
demigod, you're saying that it's half God. It is not
Right.
half of
Like the
They
only person in the Bible that you could count, I think, as a demigod would be Jesus Christ himself. Like,
No, because
Not even, because isn't
Jesus
he just like
Christ
a
is fully God.
manifestation?
Yeah.
He's just like a manifestation.
yeah,
It's
no,
not
but
like
they
the whole
call him
thing
the
of-
Son of God. So on the
Yeah,
on a
he's-
technicality,
Yeah, I would put, I mean, if you want to put it into the mythological category.
although I still think Jesus is a vampire because he rose from the dead. But hey, that's another
No,
story.
you're probably closer to the concept of the pharaohs who could truly channel a god and become a god that way.
Yeah.
But I do think Nephilim, depending on how you want to define it. I mean, as a Christian, as a person who reads the Bible, the Nephilim have to have been some sort of angelic being, spiritual being that manifested a human. Wait, before you go on, and then mated with humans.
Shut up, Chris.
No,
A little bit, yes,
Let me finish.
absolutely, 100%. But if you want to use, the term the demigod or whatever, I think that works, because again, you're talking about small g god
being
versus
used as a
big God.
colloquial term, then yes, but being strictly by definition, no. If
Okay,
you're gonna
fine.
say like, okay, that's what someone who isn't in the know, I guess you could say, would call a demigod, then yes, because they would be like, oh, that's descended from a super powerful being and it mated with a person, that's a demigod. But if
But
you
it's not a super powerful
if you go by Christian, I'm
But
saying
it
if
is.
you go by Christianity, then it's wrong. But like I'm just saying, like if like you were just some little Joe and you see a 30-foot tall dude.
Okay,
called a giant, not a
Wow.
demigod in the first damn place.
I'm just saying.
Well, I mean,
I'm
because-
trying to give credit to his point, but I'm still saying that he's wrong in the long run. So I'm still on
No,
his side.
wait,
Yeah.
thank you, Alex. But no, I'm saying, look, unless it's descended from a god itself, it can't be a demigod.
That's what I'm saying too. That's why I'm
So-
saying.
But-
no,
in a
I know, I'm
colloquial
agreeing with
term.
you. I'm disagreeing with Dad because even if the Nephilim are highly powerful spiritual beings, whatever, they still are not a god. Like I said in the beginning, you can have the child of a wood nymph and a human, and it's not going to be called a demigod, despite the fact that the wood nymph is this uber powerful being. Like, if demigod implies that it has to be half god.
okay, but not according to definition. According to definition, a human being raised to divine rank can be considered a demigod.
I've
Like,
never
look up the actual definition. The actual definition states that either being part god and part mortal, or a mortal raised to a divine rank. So if we go by that definition, you're both right. So anyone with a
Who raised
super
Nephilim to a divine rank?
enough to be raised to a divine
Because they are angelic, pure spiritual
They're
beings.
fallen. They're not pure. They made it with
supernatural
humans. That
powers.
is definitively sacrilege according to
Yes.
like that. So they are not divine.
Yes, they're
They would be divine
Okay. but
more than
you-
anything.
Again, we're arguing semantics.
Oh, now you don't want to.
But they still create
That's your point.
powers, and so therefore they would still be considered demigods.
I'm just
Maybe
saying
demons.
No, I don't.
or
I disagree.
a race of beings that are not fully human.
Then that would just be demi-human.
Yes. Which is a difference between demi-human and demigod.
That's a whole thing. Like demi-humans, like if you play like any RPG game, demi-human is a thing. If it's like
I
more,
don't.
That's what.
if it's more than
that's what the-
powerful, if it's more powerful than a human, it's not mixed with a god, but it's mixed with something that's more powerful than a human. That's a demi-human, but not a demigod.
I can see why a mortal raised to divine status would be called a demigod because they didn't start off a god in its own right. But that still doesn't. Like, I think Nephilim, the stronger argument would be that they are a demi-human as opposed to a demigod.
Fine. If you want to go that direction, that works for me. My issue is what effect did they have on humanity and what happened to them? That goes back 37 minutes, like in a very literal sense.
I don't know.
How would any of
That's
us?
back like 2 hours.
They could have maybe
Yeah,
maybe they befriended humans and helped teach them things, or maybe they just
Maybe the dictators of the world are Nephilim and we just don't know about it. Like,
maybe they just did like the Vikings did. They just mated with them, not in a very pleasant way, and then just like
Well, yeah.
murdered them and ate them and stuff.
clearly.
Or you have, I mean, you have the
Well, then how
Irish.
are they angels? I don't see how they're divine. That's again.
Well,
more to
again,
my
I think,
point of
again, you're
divine.
talking about semantic. I like your way of thinking, to be honest with you. But you're talking about
I mean-
semantics of the definition of words.
I mean, if you pull up like
We're talking-
Irish mythology, you had races of Irish kings who were supposedly part god, part human, although they thought their gods came from a different dimension.
Yeah, well, the fairies in Ireland tended to eat you.
I know. I'm just
So-
being.
I mean, they had giants, they had like demigods, they had part gods, but they weren't demigods because they were descendants of demigods. They had humans who could channel gods, kind of like the pharaoh situation, but again, or you had humans who were blessed by the gods who then had their own powers and strengths in their own right. But again, they thought that their gods came from a different dimension, essentially. Like,
I mean,
Which
I
I'm
was-
not against.
I was gonna say, I think we've seen enough of space to kind of assume that like God in a Christian sense would be from a different dimension.
Yeah, I think we all kind of
Right.
come to that conclusion. That's kind
Yeah.
of
I mean, unless he's like down in the earth.
No, I think I think episode 2 of this pretty much deferred the idea that heaven had to be a different dimension or a multiverse kind of situation.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't make any sense
We're talking
otherwise.
about ghosts, yeah.
God only knows. These things start off on one subject and end up on 78 subjects.
well, we really drove down the rabbit hole on this one. Like, the
Rabbit
title's gonna be
hole.
Demigods,
Hell.
we think. Like, we
Yeah, the
don't
title
know.
of this is gonna be like, "Meow."
Title is gonna be Alex got annoyed about Samaria and drove the conversation way off topic.
um,
And then we talked about archaeological finds that none of us are equipped to be
Honestly,
discussing.
yeah, that's really kind of what it boils down to more than anything.
well, here's a thought for you. I belong to every weirdo tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theory group on Facebook.
That was the
That's not
longest.
true. I've never seen you wear a tinfoil hat.
That is not governmental involved. And so I was on one of them, and Giorgio Tsoukalos, my favorite ancient alien advocate,
Extraterrestrials.
he put in a concept on the Moas on Easter Island, and people just tore into him about like, why don't you talk to actual experts on how they were really built and all this and all, and just hundreds and hundreds of comments, to the point that he finally came back and said, do you want to see the list of the people we actually consult before we talk? And the list was like 47 different PhDs, just straight down. And I was really impressed, because like these questions that people have, these questions that we have, they are questions that people have been having for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And I'm not entirely certain where the answers are going to lie.
Right.
I mean, there's definitely things I think I definitely have sorted out in my head.
Right.
But this whole concept of like, even this one subject has brought us into so many different subjects in just ways that you're never ever going to really know the answer. But there's stuff out there that we don't know. There's stuff out there that we could run into that we don't know. Some stuff that I'm hoping I'm wearing brown pants when I run into it.
There could be stuff right there, like you don't know.
Well,
I mean, if we're
yeah,
talking about microbiology, quite literally, there could be an unknown pathogen all throughout this room. Keep that in mind, folks, when you're going to sleep at night. You could catch an uncurable pathogen. Just chill.
Alex over here thought he had mad cow's disease 18
Shut
times.
the hell
Don't
up,
take-
Megan. You stop this slander. I did not think I had mad cow's disease. I knew I had mad cow's disease.
Listen, we went camping in Texas in July, and the water was like so warm when you stepped into it that you were like, oh no, this is brain eating amoeba water.
I mean,
100%.
Someone got that in like Austin or some shit.
Yeah.
like, last
Yeah.
summer.
So
I'm amazed. I
Arkansas, actually.
every time I took a dip in the bayou to get a fish out of there.
yeah.
So, but what I was saying with Alex's mad cow
Stop.
conspiracy is don't take him don't listen to his advice on thinking about pathogens.
No,
You
Megan, let me
also think
pass
you'll have
my
mad cow disease.
hypochondriism to everybody else.
So that's the title of the episode, right? Alice gets mad cow disease.
Yes, absolutely.
Nephalem, and we pass our personal hypochondriacs into you. But it sounded terrible.
Remember, folks, don't eat steak tartare.
Unless it's well done.
That's not steak tartare.
Wait a minute. I'm also a strong anti-sushi person for the same reason, because you know how many parasites are in salmon? A lot.
I don't know.
So do you know that, Megan? Do you know that like sushi salmon is like partially cooked? and
It's
broiled?
smoked, yeah.
I don't care.
I'm just saying.
Like,
Would
boy,
you eat
have I got
jerky?
news for you.
Megan, would you eat? Do you eat? Well, I don't know if you eat beef jerky. Do you eat beef jerky? That's
yeah, you
like-
know that.
Then it's the same shit. I've had a lot of sushi since I started dating Ani, and I've not died yet. So
I love sushi, but
I would rather
I
stab
prefer it
my
with the cooked fish, to be 100% honest with you. But I've had it with the raw stuff, and it's fine.
All right, so as we leave our audience is wondering, where do we head next? Any thoughts?
I don't know, man. I gotta look at the subject list again. There's like 58 things in the damn thing.
Well, the problem is every episode brings up 75 more.
I say you talk about zombies
So,
okay. Zombies.
Solomon Grundy was
and
born on a
delve into
Monday.
the Haitian origins of it.
Solomon Grundy was born on a Monday.
Not that zombie. Solomon Grundy born on a Monday.
that was a good reference.
It doesn't
I
even
liked it.
rhyme. I hate that thing. It's so annoying. Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday. He just mispronounces Monday. He's like a mumble rapper.
No, he's from Boston.
Your
aren't you?
grandfather says sad day.
Mhm.
Your grandfather says sad day, not Saturday.
We don't pay attention.
And batteries.
You say you say batteries too. What?
I say it ironically.
He also says Houston.
don't.
Super fun.
You
Dad, say Houston.
Houston.
No, you did that on purpose. You normally say Houston.
Yeah, so you say
And that's
Houston.
ironic.
No, it is not, because that is
Sounds
how
like
you
you're saying
say it every
Eustace.
single time.
However, I do say daughter.
Yeah, well, that's fairly standard. Mom pox are
pocket cow in the cow
like-
pack.
Yeah. So
I just
Yeah.
realized I'm the only southern one here.
Hmm?
yes,
Oh.
What?
she's
Where's
the
your-
only one from the South who should have a Southern accent.
Well,
I
I'm
have
from the
some-
south of Rhode Island.
That counts.
That's like saying I'm from the south of the Bronx. Like it's like
No, so people from the Great Swamp, they actually used to say y'all long before we moved to Texas. It was really weird.
I've said y'all
That's
since
eating
before we moved to
plastic.
Maryland. Everyone says like, oh, you got such a you even say y'all now. Like Aunt Kristen said that when we went last summer, and I was like, Aunt Kristen, I've said y'all for like
Chris and I said y'all since forever.
before.
Well, Aunt Kristen says y'all, not often, but
Yeah, but she was like, you even say y'all now. I was like, Aunt Kristen, I've said y'all since like 2014.
Not
don't
you.
say y'all.
I'm not Aunt Kristen.
Oh yeah, that is a great clarification.
Too.
What?
We say Aunt Kristen.
Say aunt.
Kristen, Aunt.
Some ants are aunts, some ants are ants. It really depends on the aunt. Aunt.
Yeah,
Well-
it depends on the name. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my sister though is married to a New Yorker.
Whose name is
Aunt
also
Kristen.
Chris. So you've got Chris and Chris, which is infuriating.
And
Well,
when-
if you just call her by her full name, then it's fine.
Your parents are Chris and Chris?
No,
Oh, that's what I thought you said. I said, holy crap. You're Chris and Chris. That's crazy.
no, I don't even.
All right. I think it's time to bring this
We shouldn't just talk about names.
Sure, that might get edited out.
Three.
to. All right.
Bye.